Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel. And today I'm going to give my review of WrestleMania 14. Starting off the evening, we go to our first match of the night. It is a tag team battle royal match. I thought it was an okay opening matchup for WrestleMania 14. Back and forth matchup with all teams involved. Midnight Express and the Road Warriors were the last two teams in the battle royal, with the Road Warriors eliminating the Midnight Express. And your winners of the match are the Road Warriors. Hats off to the Road Warriors for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is for the WWE Light Heavyweight Championship. It is Aguila versus Taka Michinoku. I thought this was a relatively good matchup. Back and forth matchup between Aguila and Taka Michinoku, with Aguila keeping the pace of the match. Aguila ends up hitting a moonsault off the top rope on Taka on the outside. Taka then hits a Michinoku driver on Aguila, pins him for the 3, and your winner of the match, and at that time, still WWE Light Heavyweight Champion, is Taka Michinoku. Hats off to Taka Michinoku for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night as well. It is for the WWE European Championship. It is Owen Hart versus Hunter Hearst Helmsley. I thought this was a good matchup. The one interesting thing I'll say about this matchup is that China did come out to the ring with Triple H, but China was handcuffed to Commissioner Sergeant Slaughter throughout the entire duration of the match. The match itself, back and forth matchup between Owen and Hunter, with Owen keeping the pace of the match. Owen hits a Hurricane Rana on Triple H for a near fall. Owen and Hunter both exchange in the middle of the ring. Owen hits a spinning heel kick on Triple H. Owen then hits an enziguri on Triple H. Hunter then gets up, hits a devastating powerbomb on Owen for a near fall. Owen then applies a sharpshooter, but Hunter breaks the hold. China then throws salt into Sergeant Slaughter's face. China then attacks Owen Hart, which allows Triple H to hit his signature pedigree, pins him for the 3, and your winner of the match, and still at that time European Champion, is Triple H. Hats off to Triple H for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is Goldust and Luna Vachon versus Mark Marrow and Sable. I thought this was an okay matchup. Back and forth matchup between both teams, with Mark Marrow and Sable keeping the pace of the match. And Sable ultimately hits a devastating TKO on Luna Vachon, pins her for the 3, and your winners of the match are Mark Marrow and Sable. Hats off to Mark Marrow and Sable for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is for the WWE Intercontinental Championship. It is The Rock versus Ken Shamrock. I thought this was a good match. Back and forth matchup between The Rock and Ken Shamrock, with The Rock keeping the pace of the match. Rock ends up hitting a people's elbow on Shamrock for a near fall. Rock then hits Ken Shamrock with a chair shot. Ken then hits a power slam on The Rock, and then Ken ultimately applies his signature ankle lock on The Rock. And your winner of the match, and at that time new Intercontinental Champion, is Ken Shamrock. Hats off to Ken Shamrock for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night as well. It is for the WWE Tag Team Championships in a dumpster match. It is the New Age Outlaws versus Terry Funk and Cactus Jack. I thought this was a great match. Back and forth matchup between both teams, with the New Age Outlaws keeping the pace of the match. Cactus then applies a mandible claw on both Road Dogg and Billy Gunn. Cactus and Billy then are both exchanging on top of a ladder in the middle of the ring. Road Dogg then hits Funk, which sends Funk into the ladder, pushing Cactus and Billy Gunn into the dumpster. Billy then hits a powerbomb on Funk into the dumpster. It looked absolutely brutal. Cactus then hits a DDT on Billy on a pallet backstage. Terry Funk then raises the forklift with the New Age Outlaws on top of the pallet that's being raised by the forklift. Funk then sends both the New Age Outlaws into the dumpster. Cactus Jack closes the lids, and your winners of the match. And at that time, the new WWE Tag Team Champions are Terry Funk and Cactus Jack. Hats off to Terry Funk and Cactus Jack for getting the win in that matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night as well. It is Kane versus The Undertaker. I thought this was a relatively good matchup. The one funny thing I will say is that Kane ended up hitting a devastating tombstone pile driver on Pete Rose, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. The match itself was a great match. Back and forth matchup between Kane and Undertaker, with Kane keeping the pace of the match. Paul Bearer ends up attacking Undertaker ringside, with Kane hitting a devastating chokeslam on The Undertaker. Kane then hits an elbow drop on Taker as well. Undertaker gets up, hits a choke slam of his own on Kane. Taker then hits a tombstone on Kane for a near fall. Undertaker then goes ahead and hits another tombstone on Kane, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is The Undertaker. Hats off to The Undertaker for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is the main event of WrestleMania 14. It is Shawn Michaels versus Stone Cold Steve Austin for the WWE Championship with Special Enforcer Mike Tyson standing ringside. The match itself, it was a great match. Back and forth matchup between Michaels and Austin, with Austin keeping the pace of the match. Shawn ends up hitting an elbow drop off the top rope on Austin, but Austin ultimately hits a Stone Cold Stunner on Shawn Michaels, pins him for the 3, and your winner of the match, and at that time, new WWE Champion is Stone Cold Steve Austin. Couple of things I'm going to say about WrestleMania 14, man, before I get out of here. Number one, this was a solid event from top to bottom. There was some matches I could have done without, mainly the Tag Team Battle Royal. I definitely could have done without that. It was great to see the Road Warriors come back, and obviously they got to win that match, but the tag teams that were involved in that match were kind of lackluster, and honestly, at the time, it seemed like Jim Cornette was trying to reinvent the Midnight Express, that what he originally was being the manager of. I mean, the original Midnight Express consisted of Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane, and that was a fantastic tag team. But you weren't going to get that same kind of feeling from the original Midnight Express with the likes of Bart Gunn and Hardcore Holly. It wasn't there. I understand what Jim Cornette was trying to do. I respect that, but it just wasn't there, man. It wasn't like the Road Warriors are going up against, Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane. It just wasn't happening. But that's one of the matches I could have done without. The other match I could have done without is Aguila versus Taka Michinoku. Taka Michinoku is severely underrated. Now, I'll give Aguila credit where credit is due. He held his own in this matchup, and he did a great job. He really did. The moonsault off the top rope, the Acai moonsault that he landed on Taka Michinoku on the outside was absolutely phenomenal. But it's one of those matches I could have done without. And again, it wasn't like the WWE Light Heavyweight Championship was still being used to this day. I mean, hell, they don't even use the United States Championships that much or the Intercontinental Championship anymore. I mean, those titles both are irrelevant to a point where the 24/7 Championship is more relevant on WWE television than their Intercontinental Champion and their United States Champion. So, I mean, that right there should go to tell you that sometimes having a championship is not always a good idea to have, especially on television. But that was one of the other matches I could have done without. The Goldust and Luna Vachon match versus Mark Mero and Sable, I thought that was a good matchup. Told a great story, and I was happy that Mark Mero and Sable got the win in that match. Rock versus Ken Shamrock for the Intercontinental Championship was also a relatively good matchup. Kane versus The Undertaker, fantastic match. And obviously the main event being Shawn Michaels defending the WWE Championship against Stone Cold Steve Austin with Special Enforcer Mike Tyson standing ringside. I mean, WrestleMania 14 to me was all about the main event. Now, credit the co-main between Kane and Undertaker. It was awesome. I think it was the first time Undertaker and Kane actually faced off against each other. So the story itself was fantastic. And the match was great. I mean, I think Undertaker gave Kane 3 tombstones by the time he ended up getting the win. So it was absolutely fantastic. And Shawn Michaels versus Stone Cold Steve Austin in the main event. Fantastic match from top to bottom, man. But if I had to give WrestleMania 14 a solid rating from 1 out of 10, I'm going to give WrestleMania 14 a solid 6.5 at best, man. I'm not going to sit here and say this was the best WrestleMania, but it damn sure was not the worst WrestleMania I've ever seen. So, but this is my review of WrestleMania 14. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful, and remember, stay classic. Peace.